and welcome to lesson number 23, how to plan dealing with material imbalances. So we're going to talk about the positional approach here and about rules for material differences in the position. Now, we have been looking at the analytical approach a lot, and step 4 of the analytical approach is evaluation of the calculated candidate moves. However, evaluation means that you have to assess the position at the end of the line you calculated. Therefore, the analytical approach intertwines with the positional approach, minimally with doing a positional breakdown of the positions. Therefore, it is important that we now switch to discussing the planning approach in all its splendor. Okay, before we do so, I suggest you do a quick recap and go back to lesson number 4 and see what the positional approach was all about. And before we really dive into it, I will do a quick recap here also. Now, the positional approach involves 1. Breaking down the position into its characteristics. 2. Naming the pros and cons that each side has. It is the ways in which the positions differ. 3. Applying the rules that have to do with these findings. 4. Formulating a plan from these findings for both sides. And 5. Finding out concrete ways to reach your goal and frustrate the other guy's goal. Okay. Now, there are 7 areas that we distinguish from each other, where the positions can differ from each other and where there can be so-called imbalances. Now, the first area is material imbalances. The second area is king safety. The third area is the difference between minor pieces, or pairs of minor pieces. For instance, good knight versus bad bishop, or more subtle distinctions. 4. Control of open files, ranks, diagonals, and squares. 5. Matters of pawn structure, such as space, weak pawns, free pawns, strong points, and open or closed positions. 6. Development. And 7. Initiative. Okay, so in this lesson we will look at the first area, the one of material imbalances, and see what rules apply to them. Okay, now listen carefully, because here comes the first rule. Now, when we're speaking about differences in material, this can either mean you're ahead in material, or you're down in material, or maybe somehow the positions are dynamically balanced as far as material is concerned, but this balance is created by, for instance, one side having 2 minor pieces, 3 plus 3 points is 6, and the other side having, for instance, a rook and a pawn. 5 plus 1 point is also 6, right? Okay, so in this lesson we're going to look at the situations when you're clearly ahead in material, so ahead in points, you can say, or where you're down in material. Now, the first rule of thumb for when you're ahead in material is to trade pieces and not pawns. So, once again, if you're ahead in material, trade pieces, not pawns. So this is the strategy if you encounter the material imbalance when you're ahead in material points. Okay, now let me explain a little bit further why you should trade pieces and not pawns in this case. In this case, you would be playing the percentages. Your advantage, your material advantage, becomes bigger, relatively speaking, and the position quiets down to the inevitable. This is because your opponent's pieces can no longer perform either defensive or attacking duties, right? Because if his pieces get exchanged, well, he can no longer stir up any trouble or defend his weak points. And thirdly, pawns can promote and pieces cannot. It is therefore in most cases better to, for instance, remain 2 pawns versus 1 pawn up with no pieces, than to remain 2 pieces versus 1 piece up with no pawns.